Hey everyone, it's James from Creators, and today I'm going to be showing you how to use your cutter's mate. So I'll start off by showing you how to set it up and show you some tips so that you can cut like a pro. So let's get started. So when you get your cutter's mate, right out of the box, you're going to see your cutting arm, the slide bar. This one is a 23-inch slide bar, which comes with the regular cutter's mate. If you have the cutter's mate plus, it comes with a 35-inch slide bar. You'll also notice that there's these two black rectangles. These are called grid adapters. The grid adapters help the slide bar plug into the grid nice and neat. And then this is optional. These are the Waffle Grids. So they don't come with the cutter's mate. They're an add-on. And you don't necessarily need the Waffle Grids for the cutter's mate to work, because on the bottom of the feet of the slide bar, there's rubber feet. So you can actually set it right on your glass and cut directly on your glass. But we recommend using the Waffle Grids because it keeps your area nice and neat and it catches all the glass shards. So I'm going to first show you how to set up the Waffle Grids. Alright, so first we're going to start off by assembling our grids. So I would recommend to use at least 4 grids for the cutter's mate. The more comfortable option is 6 grids for the cutter's mate. And then if you have the cutter's mate plus, I would probably start with 6 grids and maybe go up from there. So all you got to do is just lay these out in a 2x3 pattern. So we'll do 2 like this, and then just keep moving these grids like so. So now we have it in our 2x3 array here, and now I'm just going to go ahead and pound these grids down. And don't worry about hurting the grids. You're more likely to hurt yourself than you are the grids, because these are very strong. So I was just pounding at all of these seam lines here because essentially what we're doing is making sure that the grid surface is all nice and flush. And you can test that by just feeling the ribs here. And as long as your finger doesn't catch on anything, that means that the grids are nice and flat. So for the next part, we have to put the grid adapters into the grid. So I'm just going to go ahead and set these kind of by where this little notch is. Maybe go like a couple grid spaces over and then about 2 up from there. And then we'll do the same thing on this side. So we'll go to this one rib here, go 2 over, and then go 2 up. So we'll set that there. And now I'll go ahead and place one end of the slide bar in here. And then I'm just going to go ahead and compress the spring a little bit. And what that's going to do is it's going to kind of pull on the grid adapters, which will help keep the slide bar and the grid a little bit better. So next, we're just going to go ahead and clip the cutter's mate onto the slide bar, and we'll be ready to cut. So here we have the cutter's mate. So we're just going to go ahead and slide these 2 bushings about 5 inches apart. And then I like to rest one end of the cutter's mate onto one bushing and then just let it kind of find the other one. And then you'll just pinch them until you hear that click. And now the cutter's mate is ready to cut. So next, we're going to go ahead and add oil to the cutter. So there's 2 ways you can go about doing that. The first is that you can unscrew this little cap here. So I'm just holding down here and then unscrewing this little cap. And then in here, let me unclip this real quick. There's a hole here. You just feed your oil into there, and once you're done filling it up, you can go ahead and put this cap right back on there. So then the other option for oiling your cutter is just by simply dipping it. So we sell this thing here called the oil well, and it's just this cup that has a foam piece in there, and all you got to do is take your cutting oil and just drop it down into the oil well, and this just plugs into our grids, and you can go ahead and just dip the cutter in there, and the foam also kind of clears any debris off of the cutting wheel as well, so it helps keep it cleaner for longer. So now that we have it all oiled, we're going to be ready to cut. First off, I'm going to show you how to find out how much pressure to apply to the glass while you're scoring. Because what's unique about the cutter's mate is that it has a weighted handle. So it helps keep a constant amount of pressure being applied to the glass while you're scoring. So first, I'm going to go ahead and just score the glass with too much pressure, just so you can see what's too much pressure. So I'm just going to go ahead and press down super hard. And if you see this white dust come up on the glass, that means that you're scoring too hard. So I'm just going to go ahead, and here's a kind of general rule of thumb for when you're scoring. So you just want to push down just enough so that this little spring here compresses. So I'm just going to go ahead and put a little bit of pressure, and you can just hear the score. Now, you might not see the score, but you will hear the score, and that's the most important part, is that you at least hear it scoring. So by having too much pressure on the glass, that increases the likelihood that the glass is going to break the way it wants to break and not the way you want it to break. So you want your scores to look nice and neat and not all dusty. Next, I'm going to show you how to get used to using your cutter's mate. The way you want to hold your cutter's mate, at least for these kind of general cuts, I'll get into more intricate cuts later, but for now, all you want to do is take your hands and make a O with your thumbs and your middle fingers, just like that, and then you're going to place it on the cutter. And why you want to do that is the muscles in your hands are going to be opposing each other, so it gives you a little bit more control when you're scoring your glass. So pretty much you want to imagine that the handle on the cutter's mate is like the steering wheel on your car. So you're going to guide that wherever you want the cutter to go. And there's this screw on the back here, and imagine that to be the taillights on your car. So whatever direction you're traveling, that screw is going to be towards the back. Another tip for scoring is to use the gap where the cutting wheel is at as kind of a visual reference as to where the cutting head's going to go. So I just like to use this kind of like, you want to imagine it as like a train, this little hole here, and your line as the tracks. So you just want that gap to follow the line. So now that we know how to apply the right amount of pressure and also hold the cutter's mate, let's go ahead and actually practice doing this. So I'm just going to go ahead and draw a lazy kind of S-shaped curve here. And now all we're going to do is just take the cutter's mate like earlier and just go ahead and start scoring here. Alright, so now we can go ahead and just break this out. So there you go. So just practice that a few times and then you'll get more comfortable. And one thing I would suggest is start with just a regular Sharpie like this and then work your way down to a very fine tip Sharpie. That way it's a lot more precise when you're tracing a very thin line, and it's okay if you veer off of that a little bit. As opposed to having a more thick line, there's a lot more room for error there. So if you want really precise cuts, I would recommend going with a very fine tip Sharpie if you're tracing your pattern pieces. So next, I'm going to show you how to cut out a little bit more intricate pieces. So what I'm going to do essentially is just take the cutter, I'm going to hold it with one hand and then use my finger to kind of just help support the cutting head throughout the score. So that gives you a lot more control for those little fine cuts. So I'm just going to go ahead and hold on to the cutter here. We're just going to trace this pattern. There we go. And now I'm going to do the same thing here. And just follow the score line. And I like to do this standing up because to get a good view of your cutter, I like to kind of rotate with the cutter, but you can use this sitting down as well. So it's really up to you how you want to cut. So there we go. We got our scores. Now we're going to go ahead and just run the scores. So there's one. There's two. And our last one, there's three. So you can tell that this is really efficient for when you're doing pattern work. If you have a lot of pieces that are right next to each other and that are using the same glass in your piece, you can put them right next to each other and have them actually share the same line. That's what I do to conserve on my glass. So it really helps get the most out of the sheets of glass that you're working with. So that's how to cut the more intricate pieces. All right, so next I'm going to show you guys how to cut out deep inside curves. So real quick, I'm just going to go ahead and do a score. So we'll go up, down and around. And now what we're going to do is we're going to take our running pliers and just gradually add some pressure to each side until we hear it click. So there's that click, and the click is basically the glass starting to run. So I did the same thing on the other side. And now this is called the palm runner. So I'm just gonna look and see where the glass is starting to separate. So you can see the light coming through where the score has ran. So I'm just gonna press on one side, then move to the other, then press at the top there. We'll tap it a little bit, and we just work that away from the piece of glass. So it's really easy to get these kind of deep inside curves with the cutter's mate as opposed to using a handheld cutter, because a handheld cutter, your arm can only swivel so much. This can swivel 360 degrees, and now we have a nice deep inside curve.